wonderful evening for this. I would say we're going because we're going to take off next week. So this is the penultimate or the ultimate one for 2025. This is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr. And as we start to continue and to flow in these respective pathways, I hope everyone is moving in their blessings. For some of you who are probably able to hear some of the precursor music, you don't hear that on the recording. That's just for the people who come in and get a chance to get the room settled. It's a blessing, and we made it to almost 2026. That should be celebrated all by itself. So I give all of y'all hand claps for y'all making it through 2025. 2025 was interesting, but you're still here. You're still impactful and you're still powerful. So, without further ado, let me start greeting everyone just to give everyone their salutations. How is Miss Gaskins doing from Florida? How's everything down there? Is it chilly yet? Did you get any snow down there? Did we share some snow with y'all down there in Florida, or y'all are good? Miss Gaskins. Let's see. Miss Gaskins gonna open up her mic. Hello, Miss Gaskins. Come on now, Miss Gaskins. Before I have to go to your other brother from Florida to see how's the weather down there, because I know y'all in two different regions. He's probably a little further south than you. So let's go to Mr. Guthrie. How is everything in Mr. Guthrie's world?
Well, good evening. It's very, very pleasant. I was actually taking a walk earlier and I was saying for the time of the year, because sometimes it's Florida is get very chilly this time, but this time around it's extremely pleasant. I think it was like 70, low 70s. So it was very, very, very easy and calm.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so we didn't get a chance to share none of the snow and all our nice little winter wonderland up here. Okay. We have to figure that out next time. We got to figure that out
Definitely.
next time. But I'm very happy to hear your thoughts and hear your voice. Can't wait for
Amen.
you to hear your thoughts on tonight's teaching. Amen. Okay, let's see Miss Gaskins. Miss Gaskins, you in the building? Want to make sure maybe she's chasing her son around the house or something. Miss Gaskins, are you there? We want to check in and make sure everything's good with you.
Yes, I'm here.
Good to hear your voice. Good to hear your voice. How's everything down there in your part of the woods?
It's good. It's a little warm. It was
Oh.
cold, but now it's warm again.
Now, what's warm? What's the temperature? What we say is warm.
Well, I don't need a sweater, so
Oh,
I don't
okay.
need no sweater, no jacket.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. And I hear that young man in the background. Hello. How's everything with you two, young man? Hopefully, I know they probably out from school, so I know. Yeah. Hello. Hello. Good to hear your voice too, young man. Good to hear your voice too. Thank you for joining us here tonight. Okay, let's go to Miss Wyndham. Hopefully, her two young boys are giving her a little break. How is everything with Miss Teresa Wyndham? How's everything with you?
Everything's going fine. I had a busy day. Finished my last minute Christmas shopping.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
Lord.
And Cynthia's here too. Deaconess Cynthia.
Excellent.
So we're both in the same.
Hey, mother.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. Glad to hear both of you are here, and blessed that y'all are a part of the conversation tonight. So thank y'all for joining.
Thank you for having us.
No, not a problem, not a problem. And the person who helped, even though I did the teaching, I did work, but you always got to give credit where credit is due. And one of the things that about being thankful in the space is that when you can recognize people who can give you an influence or give you a way to start pointing into a particular direction, you always have to acknowledge that. Because remember, thankful people are thinking people. I'll say that again. Thankful people are thinking people. And when you are a thinking person, you start to recognize, you become wise enough to know that not every single thought is just always, I just came to it and it just popped into my brain. No, she sent me some information based upon the conversation that we had last week. So if you didn't see last week's comeback conversations, definitely go to our YouTube channel, Dr. Gregory Clarke Master Coach, and you can catch up to last week's conversation, which was a great one. But it kind of facilitated her and said, because of what we spoke about, now I'm just sending you this information. when I looked at the graphic and looked at the information, I said this was good. And next, you know, that it turned into something else. We were going back and forth because, you know, she was looking at, you know, we're being very inclusive with some of the pictures, but we won't go there until you see it. Without further ado, Miss Nicole Johnson, MB of A. How is she doing on this fine evening?
You know, you just said that thinking people are thankful people.
Mm-hmm.
So, as the wonderful people from Florida were giving their temperature, and I verified mine, I'm just thankful that in about 7 months, I will get the double portion of temperature because it's currently 36 degrees.
Mm.
So, yeah. But as we discussed tonight, millions, billions, trillions,
Come on.
getting that mindset straight. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So we won't tarry because we usually, you know, jump into some current events already. But, you know, our administration, there's so much stuff that we can talk about that would take up too much time, from Epstein files to our president still putting his foot in his mouth to, you know, now we taking over oil tankers from different countries. We're acting like we patrolling the Caribbean, like the Caribbean's our own. All those different things, you know. The senators getting upset because you got Jasmine Crockett now who's running for to be one of the U.S. senators. There's only 100 U.S. senators in the whole country. So now she got them riled up already, getting them nervous, which is a good thing. So hopefully Texas do what they need to do and make sure next year she gets in that seat, because we got to change something. We need some more color. There's nothing wrong with some more color. Color helps the world go around. Culture makes the world go around. And as we recognize that our beginning or our, say, history does not begin in slavery, you start to recognize how impactful and powerful that continent of Africa, the cradle of life, has, you know, brought forth for the rest of the world. That's why everyone tries to come and take all their natural resources, because any resource that you look for, any type of situation you're looking for, all began there. So, without further ado, we're going to get into tonight's teaching, where we are going to deal with the precursor. Let's see, there we go, there we go, there we go. Okay, I always ask our how should I say, our assistant here, as she's being acknowledged. Can we see the PowerPoint slide?
Very, very clearly. Yes, we can.
And the reason why I'm laughing, because she sent me a picture. Because look, one of the things that we have to be a little bit respectful for as things are evolving, regardless of how we feel about certain things, there are certain things that are in the fabric that is part of our cultural dispensation. Even when you think about eunuchs, when the Bible talks about eunuchs were individuals who were trusted around the treasury. They were trusted around the harems. They were trusted around some of those things, and were utilized sometimes as very distinct advisors. So in this picture, it would look kind of weird if you looked at the picture and you see, you know, someone with a mustache and pearls on. In this day and age, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, that would be something that would cause, you know, a whole lot of hysteria. But in this day and age, we're starting to respect the fact of all the things that make up our cultural diaspora, regardless if we do certain things or we don't do certain things. We're not here to belabor or to worry about what goes on as people represent their space of love. Because if that's the case, even us as individuals of faith, we would have to look back at so many of our church choirs and start to really have that eyebrow raised when you start talking about those people who you'll be surprised, who have created some tremendous stuff of faith that you'd be like, oh, okay, so. But we won't belabor in that. We just wanted to get that out the way just in case if anyone has some thoughts. You know, it's just a multi-generational collaboration of certain things of the modern family. So without further ado, the Dynasty Path. Today's not week one. This is the teaser. We're going to start this on the first Tuesday of January. So for 7 weeks, starting that first Tuesday in January. So next week, we're going to take a week off. Everyone just get prepared for the new year. Everyone get to rest. Everyone get to cease and settle. And then when we come back that following Tuesday, that very first Tuesday, we're going to start the 7 weeks journey of this particular teaching. So it's a 7-week journey from survival to stewardship by myself and with assistance from Miss Nicole Johnson, MBA, because she did share the graphic that gave me the herewithal to start thinking about going in this particular direction, which is part of my wheelhouse, because how I got my doctoral degree, my doctorate of ministry, my dissertation was about financial literacy, especially when it came to the African-American community. And so as we go through the slides, you're going to see this is not a sales pitch. This is not about selling anything. This is about gathering information and allowing us to be in a space that we become a little bit more well-rounded. Because as 2026 comes around, and hopefully those areas that you are investing on, not just only real estate, it's not about just going to get in the house. Our money should be working in other different and respective areas that have opportunities for potential growth. But if we don't take advantage, or at least position ourselves to at least be in those other areas, then we get locked out. Because we can have plenty of faith, but without funds still doesn't work. So you need faith, and you also need funding. So as we go further, you were never meant to just get by. I'm going to say this again as you look at the picture. It's like 2 generations in this picture looking powerful and strong. You were never meant to just get by. See, when they talk about abundant and living in an abundant type of experience or abundant type of possibility, it's never about just, oh, I got enough to pay my bills and I'm good. See, that was an old adage. That was a way of us being in a space where we were well developed to move in that type of vernacular. But that doesn't really work for the long term. When you start thinking about living in a resourceful environment, or if you're living in a space where you're seeing that your money is working for you and you're not just working for it, or even if you're in a space where you're retired, just because you're retired from a career doesn't mean that you've stopped. There's still possibilities, there's still wisdom, there's still all that experience that you generated and the lessons that you have learned. That's worth something. That's definitively worth something. So the reality is, many families work hard. Many families love deeply, yet very families leave structure behind. See, it's like saying that we have all this stuff and we talk about love and emotions and we talk about people's feelings and all this other stuff. But then when we start really breaking it down and getting to the real kit and caboodles of certain situations and certain things, you start to see that is there really a structure that has been generated for us to even live through? As the same way I was talking earlier about the fact that at times people love to equate like our beginning started with slavery. No, we had some very structured patterns that were established from the motherland that at times we were positioned systemically not to be aware of. And since we wasn't aware of it, so now that we're moving in a space where it seems as if, we went from the sharecropper mentality, then into the whole industrial revolution and becoming, like a factory worker mentality, and everything was about us working our behind. Just keep working your behind. But the people who are really making the real money know how to work their mind. Not saying that you're not being in action, but it has to be a balance. Yeah, you can work your body and stay in those spaces and places of movement. But on top of that, you start to recognize that you still need a structure that allows you to say, wait a minute, there's a lot of experience that I was able to generate from. And now maybe I can pay it forward. Maybe I can share it with others. Maybe I can repackage that into something else. And that's what structure is about. So without intentional design, the systems we need most, clarity, unity, and order, slowly erode under the weight of time and silence. That's why it's always good to say those people who are our elders, because I don't look at people, old people. when we see the elders in our community, it's up to us to start to say, you know, how do we start getting some of that great information that they experience? Not saying that we can't do it better in 2025 going into 26, but it's like there's still certain things that are tried and true that are worth to do and worth to be aware of. And if we don't reach out to those individuals and get their stories or get those recipes or get the ways of you know, those ways of keeping certain those traditional spaces alive, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. And it's not about just having dollars. We have to have dollars and cents. And I'm talking about SENSE, not just CENTS. So any thoughts that anybody, as they look at this slide, they would like to chime in before we move on? I'm going to give anyone an opportunity to open up their mic, and if you have a thought, if not, we will move forward. Amen. Going once, going twice, and we are moving on. Money isn't the issue. Order is. I'm going to say this again. Money isn't the issue. Order is. Ms. Johnson, can you read that first thought, just the first box?
Sure. Silence. Conversations avoided become conflicts inherited.
There's too many times we're too silent in our lives. We are too silent when it comes to those areas of searching out for the information, or sometimes we have been systemically positioned not to be in those spaces where we can, you know, start to search it out, or just waiting for someone else to do it for us. No one's going to do it for you. Let me say that again. No one's going to do it for you but you. Now, when you start hanging around other individuals, that's why they say, you know, depending upon who you hang around, can give us a prophetic glimpse into where you're going. You start to recognize the people who are moving in spaces where they're really developing not only their resources, but their networking capabilities, they're not silent. It's like, I remember learning this even from when I was growing up in the Bronx. You know, closed mouths don't get fed. I remember when I was young and when I first heard that, I said, wow, what do you mean by that? And it's not about you just talking. Reason why that whole vibration is a whole bar, because it now is like, who do you interact with? Who do you glean from? Who are you learning from? Who are you willing to grab information from? That's going to allow you to no longer be silent, so you can be in those spaces that, wait a minute, if I'm in the marketplace, I'm able to navigate accordingly and powerfully. Can you read the next one, please?
Assumption. Unspoken expectations breed disappointment.
Ooh, that's a great one. Because, you know, when you assume, you can make an ass out of yourself. See, the first three letters just jump out you. And why is that so important? I remember learning that in middle school, going into high school. It says, never move in assumption. Because assumption makes an ass out of you and me. So if that was just the word assume, that would break that word down. And why is that so important? Because sometimes we can move in those things that we're just in expectation mode, and there's no conversation. Going back to silence, there's no conversation. You just, okay, because we did this in my family, like this and that and the third, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Not making your family wrong. We're not even making the cultural dispensation wrong. But why are we making an assumption? Because you are just basing it upon what? Just your own shared experience? That means in some ways that's still a silent expectation, which is not necessarily workable. But now when we break down assumption and we don't move in assumption, now even if we have an expectation, if it's been articulated, that means we've broken the silence. At least it's in conversation says, wait a minute, okay, let us figure out how we can really work with this thing. And now we're not just moving and just saying, okay, I'm going to get disturbed because you didn't do what I thought you were supposed to do. That's assumption. Can you read number 3, please?
Avoidance. Delayed decisions compound into chaos.
Ooh, see, sometimes we avoid certain things that we don't give ourselves the level or just the basic structure to learn about. It's like, I can remember in our respective church when we started during COVID. We started talking about investments. We started getting into a little bit more financial literacy and things of that nature, which led me into recognizing that was my love to do the dissertation that led to my doctorate degree. I started to recognize a lot of things that we were positioned. Sometimes there are scarecrows put into space to make you feel like, oh my God, I can't get into this market. Or just like there was a time we can't get into home ownership. Or I can't really see myself as a business person. Or I can't do this and I can't do that. We're avoiding. It's avoidance. It's avoidance. That's why we got to thank God for the Madam C.J. Walkers. We got to thank God for all those individuals that at least position us in some level of structure to recognize, wait a minute, we as of African descent can be controllers of our faith, controllers of what it is that we're doing in our community, and also to be good in the marketplace. So there are times that we can be in those relative distinctive spaces where we're just moving in avoidance, because and that avoidance can cost you. It's just like to say if you'd have had $2,000, and I'll probably ask, because I know Miss Johnson can do it on her chat real quick. Ms. Johnson, tell me what your assistant would tell you if you had, say, and I'm gonna give a low number, $2,000. Nothing to break the bank. I'm not talking about 10,000. I'm not talking about 100,000. Tell me what $2,000, if you would have invested in Facebook, would be worth right now today. I didn't say 20,000. I didn't say 200,000. I didn't say go rob someone or break someone's bank. $2,000, something that what we would consider is like a small amount of number. Say we had $2,000 and we invested in Facebook when Facebook first became public. What would it be worth right now? And I know hopefully her assistant will give her that information so she can share that with the group. What would you be able to get?
Processing right now, approximately $36,000.
Think about it. Who would love a return like that? That means if you just simply put $2,000 when Facebook first came out and just left it there. That's not counting the fact of the dividends that you got. We're talking about that's just she's giving you just the stock price. Now, if you invested $2,000, sometimes we got people in our community who spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a bag. And we're talking about one company. I'm not even going to talk about Amazon or Google or all these other companies, Microsoft, or, different, or even all the way up to the fact that we talk about cryptocurrency. And that's why I said these teachings and this teaser is not about telling you what to invest in, but it's about putting you in a space that we have to break out of that vibration of avoidance. We got to stop with this stuff about, I don't know, so I'm just going to sit on my hands. Wait a minute, there's too much information at our disposal that just becomes that you're just making a choice not to allow your money to be in a possibility of working for you. And you just feel like you're stuck in that cycle where it's like, well, my mama told me I got to go out there and go get a good job or get a good career and just work and work and work and work and work. Who told you that? Now we're talking about a cultural systemic lie. Because if you're able to work your mind, then you start to recognize, wait a minute, if I take some of my funds and just even if it's something that you're doing as a structure, and it may seem like a small amount to some people, but you'd be surprised those small amounts with compound interest can turn into something that can be a blessing. So thank you for that, Ms. Johnson. And can you read the fourth box?
Unspoken expectations. Hidden hopes fracture relationships.
And see, how many times did we run around in unspoken expectations? That's why this is the teaser for the Dynasty Path. Because, see, that can break your dynasty or your potential dynasty. I'm just going to sit here and don't say anything. Okay. I'm just here to work so I can pay bills. No, who told you that lie? Who positioned you that way? And why are we positioned that way? Why are African Americans still less than maybe 16, 17% of the population here of the United States, and all the stuff that's going on with tariffs, and we know where food prices are and all the other relative cost structures that are in play, but we're still the number one consumers. We have to think about that. Why were we structured in that manner? Because they wanted to position you like still like you were part of cattle. They're gonna go out there, they're gonna go work. They even if they end up with some decent income, we're gonna figure out a way to get that money away from them, and it's not even gonna stay in their community. Because we're gonna put all these things to make sure that they stay as consumers instead of recognizing the power they have when they start moving in space of collaboration and creation. So some of those unspoken expectations from my dissertation work to even to this very second are still in our respective communities. And why is that still aligned with the whole vision of the comeback collective circle? Because as we deal with the ontology of being, now we have to start recognizing that our being has to be upgraded. Our being can't be the same way that it was before. We can't do the same thing that didn't work and expect a different result. We have to move some of those things that were unspoken and get rid of that crap. As the final line states, what breaks families isn't a lack of love. We have plenty of love. We even love the people who don't like us. Sometimes we love the people that don't like us more than we love the person that looks just like us. So what breaks families isn't a lack of love, it's the absence of structure. Wealth without order doesn't bless, it burdens. Because even as I can go back to that time frame where, we were talking about financial literacy and telling people, advising. Remember, everything I'm saying is about advisement. Even when you look at some of those financial stations that are on television, they let you know, even if you may hear someone who has some sort of experience, the disclaimer will come up. Please take the information that you heard under advisement. Please find someone who can assist you, or you do your due diligence. That means you have to yes, you got to get into action. You can't just sit there with blinders on and say, I don't know what's going on, and that's it. No. Sometimes you can get on right there on YouTube University and start to find out. Not even telling you to go into someone's class of mine. You can go right there on YouTube and be like, yo, I just want the basics of this so I can, even if I'm a $25 a week investor or a $50 a week investor, and be like, okay, it doesn't seem like much. And all of a sudden, if you're diligent, and you stay consistent, you be surprised what can happen. So any thoughts before we move on to the next slide? Remember, this is not so much a monologue, it's a dialogue. We love the interaction. And see, that goes back to being silent, because sometimes our silence can be like, oh my God, am I trying to look good? Am I attempting to look good? No, it's not about looking good. It's about generating the space, the interaction.
I have a couple of thoughts.
Go ahead.
First thing, did you say Dynasty app, or is Spirit telling me to tell you something? Did you say Dynasty app?
No, Dynasty Path.
Okay. All right.
You heard Dynasty app? Okay.
I heard app, so that's why I asked the question. Okay,
let me write. I'm writing that down as you talk. I'm gonna write that down. Maybe that's. Hey, we don't despise any angels. All angels are workable.
The second thing, when you first started explaining the slide, you're saying you can't sit, you can't do nothing. Only thing I heard was the late Bishop Kirby Brown singing, Lord, do it. And for me, that's of the mindset of, if I just pray enough, it's going to happen. And like, I'm thankful that I'm in this place where deconstructing harmful theology or thought is part of my mindset. So I can't just sit and pray and boom, it happens with no input from me. So I'm glad for places and spaces like this that kind of say, hey, you know what? That was a great thought then. It didn't work. Now it's time to put the onus on ourselves to try and start doing things. And then the final thought, which I think is like a summary of this slide, is that wealth is made in communication. Whether it's family wealth of knowledge, financial health, or basically just physical happiness, growth, spiritually, emotionally, it's all made in communication. So if you want to be rich, which I'm learning now, you can't just sit by yourself and say, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be wealthy. Boom. No, it's in communication and community. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ms. Johnson. Anyone else want to put their thought or have a question before we move on to the next slide? That was a great, great share by Ms. Johnson. Excellent. Why most legacy attempts fail. I'll say this again, as you can see in the picture, they're sitting there, they're having a conversation. There's a bunch of papers on the table. Why most legacy attempts fail. Information without integration. Ooh-wee. How many times we heard, someone, came to me with some sort of idea and, I was going to lose my money. It's like, think about it. Right now, at the time of this taping, Bitcoin is probably in the $80,000 range, somewhere in the 80s. It's gotten as much as 124,000 at one point in 2025. But say around 2007, 2008, when Bitcoin was first started, and you was able to say, if you had $1,000 and you had bought 1,000 Bitcoins, right when it was $1, $1. To say, you know what? I'm just gonna let this thing ride and sit there. So while I'm starting to read this slide, I'll probably come to Ms. Johnson because she'll probably get that data just to say, what would happen if I had 1,000 Bitcoins and bought it at $1 each? And what is that worth today? And I'll come to it because I know she'll be able to get that data, and then we can interact and talk about that. Because this goes back into sometimes we have information without integration. See, integration is about being in action. One of the things I've recognized over time is that in order to build an effective portfolio or even how to utilize debt properly, because too many times, especially those of us in Black and brown communities, we don't use debt properly. We use debt to buy things. We use debt to look good. We sometimes, use debt just to, sometimes put ourselves in a space where we're attempting to impress people that we don't need to impress. And it's like, wait a minute. That's not what debt is for. Debt is really for leverage. Debt is really about, okay, I've had access to this. Now, how can I use this OPM, other people's money, to get an asset or something that will be appreciable so I can grow? So as it's growing, and it's not about, as most of us here probably know about seed time and harvest, it's not about snatching the seed out quick. No, it's going to take some time. You have to be patient. You can't be emotional with this thing. That's why even most times back in the days when if you was attempting to get into some of those brokerage houses, they let you know, so look, this money that you're about to invest is at risk. Please don't call us up talking about you put your rent money or your mortgage money and you calling the broker every 2 seconds. The market went down. If you are that type of individual, you're not going to generate wealth because as we know, wealth has its swings. There are times if you invested in the market, your stock is down. I'm like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Then you turn around a month later, the stock done doubled. And you're like, wait a minute. You're not even stuck at the point when you thought that the stock was going down. Oh, it went down a little bit. Okay, it went through the cycle. Oh, it's down and okay, got all the scared people out, and all of a sudden, those who were able to ride the wave, all of a sudden, as the wave went back up, it's like, wait a minute, these people done double or triple their wealth. And when you hear a lot of times, most of these people who are billionaires or even people who are 100 millionaires, a lot of times it's based upon their investments, not that they're walking around with $2 trillion or $100 million and all this other stuff. No, they have their investments, which they can then leverage, have access to capital, and then it just keeps the cycle going. So that's why information without integration is one of the things that Black and brown people, we have to get better in. Because the information is there. You can't make no more excuses about I don't know. That's a poor mentality, saying I don't know. Because even if you don't know, then you can find out about it. Not saying that you have to become an expert, but taking the opportunity says, you know what, let me just be aware of what's going on. And even if I dip my foot into the pool, because I believe I'm going to get healed if I dip my foot into the pool. Let me dip my foot into the pool. I'm not going to do anything if you always, I never get to the pool. I know the information is there, but I just never be in action around it. No. Mm-mm. So most people know they should plan. Most people know that they mean to have conversations. And most people hope things work out. Reality. Hope is not a strategy. Love needs language. Faith requires wisdom. Let's say the reality part again. Hope is not a strategy. That's why when we talk about having great faith, that is wonderful. That is a part of your foundation. That is what you should be able to, part of the thing that you're standing on, that's being that buffer for you to have some sort of balance in your life. Yes, great to have faith. But you can't sit there and say, because I have faith, or I know how to sing a song, or I know the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. Like, there's a lot of poor people out there who can be in that particular ramification because all they have is their faith without recognizing, okay, where's their actionable steps? So hope is not a strategy. Love needs language. And one of the things that we recognize, and sometimes we get a little bit wrong in the English language, because we know there's different types of love. If we look in the Greek, there's at least four different types. And now we're talking about what love are we talking about? We're not talking about just the intimacy in a couple. Could it be that storge, which is that familiar or family-like, or filio or phila, which is that brotherly type? Are we talking about eros, where we're talking about where you can get the word erotica from, where it's more of an intimacy with people in a relationship? So what type of love language? Because the type of love that you may have, and there's agape. When we talk about love, we have to recognize when we say that four-letter word, what are we really meaning? Because too many times we can move in the assumption, as we saw in the previous slide, that we just, okay, love needs language. Okay, what does that mean? What type of love? How's the interaction? What type of love are you manifesting through so it can generate the right language that positions yourself for possibility? And as the reality line completes, faith requires wisdom. If you're not willing to put yourself in a space that you are generating some level of wisdom, and there's some level of evolution in your thought patterns and growth, that means you're still stuck in the same type of patterns, which are not going to generate any results. And that's why most legacy attempts fail. The truth is, legacy collapses when responsibility is delayed. The gap between intention and action is where generational wealth disintegrates. And the sad thing is, those communities or those companies or those spaces and places where they're hoping that you don't get into a space where you start talking about generational wealth, that they're hoping that you just love being a consumer, or they just hoping that they can get your dollars as soon as you get your check, or even if you're a business owner, you get your finance and it's like the money's just flying out the house. They're hoping for that. But it's up to us to say that instead of these legacy attempts failing, that with the right strategy, right implementation of movement and possibility, all the things that people would assume that we as Black and brown people would do, all of a sudden starts to turn on its ugly head for them. Now they turn around and say, wait a minute, you own the building? Wait a minute, you own this particular consumer park? A commercial park? Or you over here, you own part of this company? Oh, I wouldn't have understood that. I thought you was coming here to be a worker. Good. Keep underestimating me. Well, not I'm only building this for myself, but I'm building this for my children's children. It all starts in responsibility and possibility. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide?
I have your answer regarding Bitcoin, and I'm very sad.
Yes. What? Just $1,000, right? We talking about $1,000.
When Bitcoin could first be traded, the the value was 9/10,000ths of a dollar. So 1,000 US dollars would have I'm sorry, I'm struggling. Would have bought you approximately 1,111,111 Bitcoin. The present value, Bitcoin as of today, which is December 23rd, is valued at $87,633 per coin. That would be a value of $97,370,000 if you made the investment roughly October 5th, 2009. You would be a billionaire. I'm gonna go lie down.
And you would be, as Ms. Johnson just shared the data, you have been a billionaire. You'd had 97 billion. As people would have been sitting here fussing about Bitcoin went down and Bitcoin went down and this and arguing about. See, there's a long strategy where people with some long money, when they know that they have some investable discretionary income, that this says, you know what, this money's going to work over here. I know I got bills. I know this is popping up, that's popping up. That's a short game. You know, I was invested in this company and I had to take this money. No, who told you? Didn't have to take that money out. That's part of your leverage. And then you turn around and say, okay, I'm just going to take my money out of that investment and just stand there and whatever the case may be. Then turn around and say, oh my God, that thing done went up another 5 times, another 10 times. Yeah, I was in that company. So it's still part of that's great. That was a great investment. So that's helping your portfolio grow and continue to mature over time. Well, you know what? Oh. So now think about it. As I made that statement about the $1,000 in Bitcoin going back to 2009, there's a high probability that individual who had that many Bitcoins during the time of some of these run-ups, maybe when it got to 40,000, maybe when it got to 50,000, and started to see that they had that many coins, after a while you start liquidating. That's what the rich do. You don't sell it all. You don't jump out of it totally. But you have enough wisdom to say, wait a minute, this went up enough that if I pull some of this out and I still have a significant investment still in this thing, and this thing has power, I can, take something that I can live off, pay some of the capital gains taxes on that, and the rest of the money is mine, and then I can take some of the money, invest in some other stuff, and this and that third, and live a very decent life. And these are legacy conversations. So I'm just bringing out the data because I'm recognizing as I worked on my dissertation and then got re-stimulated in the fact that I'm dealing with stuff from ontology and being, they can work. In 2026, we're gonna start off the year right as we start to really have these relevant conversations to really develop and build. And we need some more people here in the background. That's why I'm reaching out to more and more of y'all. And the only thing I'm asking for most of you is to reach out to other people that need to get this information. Sometimes we want to be, I know about this. No. That's the worst case scenario. That is a mentality that doesn't work. If I see someone if I have good shoes on and I desire for you and you're in my community, I desire for you to have good shoes as well. It don't make no sense for my shoes to be good and yours is collapsing. No, let me help you figure out a way that you can be in action. So I'm happy that your shoes look good. Then your aesthetics are great. They were not stuck just saying, okay, these people look good. No, we all look good. They can't. They said there should be a time frame where, even they said there was a time frame when Jesus walked around that him and the disciples looked in such a way they couldn't tell who was who. Disciples knew who the leader was, but they started to move and integrate and be able to and when they walked as a company, like we can't tell them apart. We can't just say, okay, there's the leader, go get him. No, they all look like a leader. That same vibration allows us to manifest.